Imagine a 16-year-old on a dark, deserted street, holding a broken bottle to their wrist, on the verge of committing suicide because they didn't think that their life was valuable and they didn't have anyone to help them. They feel alone and afraid with no one to talk to because of the stigma associated with mental health and mental illness. This is what people with mental health challenges and mental illness deal with before, during, and after they're in crisis. But an interesting dynamic began to unfold in 2020. The world was entrenched in the pandemic of the COVID-19 virus. There were suddenly feelings of isolation, fear, and death. And all of a sudden, it was okay to start talking about mental health. I would hear people say, I need a mental health day so that I can clear my mind and I can go and talk to my friends. But even celebrities have started coming out as well. Celebrities like Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, Lady Gaga, Michael Phelps, and Simone Biles have all opened up about their mental health struggles. I even remember watching a public service announcement from Meryl Streep, and she was talking about mental health. And that was exciting to me. But then I thought, what about mental illness? When will it be okay for somebody to say, I need a mental illness day so that I can go and clear my mind with my therapist and talk to my psychiatrist about adjusting my meds? We need to break down the stigma of mental illness. And the first step is understanding the differences between mental health and mental illness and not using the two of them interchangeably. According to the Center for Disease Control, mental health is how we think, feel, and act, while mental illness is a condition that affects our thinking, feeling, mood, and behavior. Mental illness doesn't discriminate. There are many people in history and today who have suffered with mental illness. Think about one of our most accomplished presidents, Abraham Lincoln. He suffered from incapacitating depression. Could you imagine what he could have done if he was mentally well? And then the next one, Charlie Brown. Who would think of mental illness in Charlie Brown? How awkward is Charlie Brown when you watch him, right? It makes so much more sense when you realize that his cartoonist, Charles Schulz, was believed to be on the autism spectrum. And then one of the most noted scientists of their time, Sir Isaac Newton, he made so many discoveries that he never published because he was afraid of criticism from his fellow scientists. He was diagnosed with manic depression, which is now known as bipolar disorder. And my very favorite 1970s singer, Karen Carpenter, died from heart failure, which is a known condition from anorexia, an eating disorder. And we wouldn't be surfing USA with the Beatles without schizophrenia. And that's because singer, songwriter, producer, and composer Brian Wilson dealt with that most of his life. These people and so many others have lived productive lives with their mental illness. But how many people even knew or even talked about it? What makes them so different from you and me? Well, maybe just you. Because I've been diagnosed with multiple mental illness disorders. And that makes me stronger. And I'm standing here today on this big red dot talking to you about something that may make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. During my time with my mental illness, I've been hospitalized. Multiple times I've been hospitalized. And remember that 16-year-old I was talking about before? The one that was afraid, the one that had no one to turn to, the one that was ready to commit suicide? Well, she didn't, because that was me almost 40 years ago. And since that time, I've thought about suicide almost every day. And again, been hospitalized multiple times. And one of those times that I thought about suicide, and one of those times I took action, was when my son was only 3 years old. The last time that I had those thoughts of suicide was only in 2019. I was terrified to go to the hospital, so I was put into an intensive and monitored outpatient therapy program. The first 3 days of that program, I walked in with my head down. I never looked up, and I never said a word. But I listened. I listened to the other people in the group talk about their mental illness. And that gave me strength enough to start talking myself. After I was discharged, I knew I had to keep talking. So I went and I found an amazing group of individuals who talk about their mental illness and let me talk about mine. Outpatient therapy was a turning point in my life. I never talked about my mental illness before that. And I realized that the difference between this time and all those other times I was in crisis was the talking. Now I talk about my mental illness all the time. But that's despite the stigma, because it's the stigma that takes away our strength. But I'm stronger because of my mental illness. Did you know that the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI for short, says that 1 in 5 adults in the United States suffers from a mental illness every year? And 17% of children ages 6 to 17 experience mental health crises. This directly corresponds to suicide being the second leading cause of death among people between the ages of 10 and 34. During my own personal journey, realizing how important it is to talk, I knew the stigma was still there. But I'm getting over that. But so many other people don't get over it. The stigma is still there. And you may have a family member, a friend, or a coworker who has a mental illness and doesn't know where to turn to for help. For some, it's a matter of life and death. So I'm going to encourage everybody to talk about your mental illness. And if you're not quite sure how to get started, I have some tips. The first thing is you want to find somebody that you trust. You want to find your person. And when you do that, make a list of people. But while you're making that list, think to yourself, will this person be there for me and keep my confidence? Will they be there and make time for me? And when will they be there when I'm well and in crisis? The first person on your list might not be your person. That's okay. That's why you made a list. For me, my person is sitting over here getting ready to go backstage so that he can hug me and help me get through the anxiety attack that's inevitably going to come. The second thing you want to do is make sure that you're mentally well. You don't want to be in crisis when you have this conversation. You want to make sure that your person completely understands what you go through and what you need when you're going into crisis. You also want to make sure you know the language of your mental illness and provide examples to your person. My mom, when I first told her about my mental illness, she had no idea what I was talking about because she never experienced what I experienced. So make sure you find different ways to explain it. For me, I just talked to my mom about the medical side of things, and something made more sense for her. Make sure you practice what you're going to tell people, even if you practice with the dog, the cat, the horses, or the chickens. And now you want to find a quiet and private place to have your conversation. Make sure you schedule enough time so that you can tell your person everything you want to tell them. You don't have to tell them everything right up front, but you need to make time for them and not be running out, picking up the kids, or rushing back to work because your lunch hour is over. Time is crucial when you're having this conversation. If you have a short period of time, just start the conversation short and then go back and fill in all the blanks. Today, I'm here to tell you or ask you that you can start a conversation to end the stigma of mental illness. This is not a sad story, and don't be afraid of some of the things that I said. This is a story to begin a transformation on how people think about mental illness and the people who deal with it every day. To end this, I want to tell you that I'm here today to start that conversation and provide education about mental illness. If you need more information, then please go to organizations like NAMI.org, starttheconvo.net, or mentalhealth.gov. Together, we can start the conversation and end the stigma of mental illness. Who knows? Maybe from the information you learned here, you can save the life of a 16-year-old. Thank you.